Mr. Speaker, I rise today to reflect on the 100th day of Donald Trump's second term as president. While some of my colleagues celebrate his actions, I am reminded why I first ran for office and why I continue fighting for my community. I was raised to believe that the United States of America was built on the principles of liberty, democracy, and equal opportunity. For more than 2 centuries, those ideals have guided us, creating a nation where everyone has the right to pursue their dreams, serve their communities, and have a voice in their government without reprisals. But today, we are witnessing some deeply troubling an erosion of the rule of law, the abandonment of democracy norms, and the betrayal of the very values Americans of all backgrounds have long fought to uphold. On this 100th day of the 119th Congress, I stand firm in my belief that I too am an American, I too am a patriot, I too will continue to defend the values and principles that made this country a beacon of hope for the world. Normally, I would welcome a discussion on improving election operations, but these are not normal times. You see, President Trump and his cronies, like Elon Musk, do not care about the rule of law or the Constitution. They're destroying the economy, attacking and arresting judges, and recently deported 3 American citizens' children, including a 2-year-old toddler and a 4-year-old with stage 4 cancer, a rare cancer. If President Trump and his administration don't care about due process for a child with cancer, how can you honestly sit here and debate and believe that they believe in the Constitution or a free and fair election? Hogwash. They ignore judges when decisions don't go their way. They deny election results when they don't win. Let's be honest, Chairman. Their actions on elections has one goal: to sow distrust in our election system, to suppress the vote, and to make it harder for Americans to participate in our democracy. Not your democracy, our democracy. Do you know what makes people question our elections? It's not California elections. It is the President Trump, Elon Musk, and the Republican Party pushing lies and refusing to follow the law. Meanwhile, Trump's voting order and the Republican SAVE Act will create huge burdens of every American. You've allowed other members to go beyond their time, but you don't like what I'm saying, so you try to shut me down. The SAVE Act is nothing but a bill to try to cancel the vote of people that don't want to vote for you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. All members are reminded to refrain from the use of personalities directed at members of Congress, the President, or the Vice President.
Where Secretary Hegseth is, there's obviously the monument when you guys were out on your recess with him. Is he someone who you think, rank and file in the military at this point and have confidence in?
Well, I don't have any confidence in him. I mean, I can't speak for everybody in the military, though I served in the United States Navy for 25 years. And when you put somebody who is clearly not up to this job, and by the way, it's one of the hardest jobs we have in the country, managing a $850 billion enterprise with millions of employees. This is what you get. You get chaos, you get ridiculous mistakes, you get sharing of information with people that shouldn't have the information. So I'm not surprised. Before his vote, I went to the Senate floor and I said to my Republican colleagues, are you sure? Are you sure you want to put this guy, who in my view is clearly unqualified, into this job? I'm not surprised we're here.
And on a different topic, Senator Sanders today is introducing Medicare for All at a press conference with Congresswoman Jayapal. Democrats are obviously searching for a message besides fighting back with Trump to go forward a positive message. Is this the type of positive message? That
I haven't seen his proposal. I'll take a look.
It's Medicare for All.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
What works in the holiday in Hollywood Doesn't work in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania.
I hear and I see you're reading from there. I get it. I'm not, these aren't gotcha questions. So I think you answered it. I think your point, what you're saying is that you don't believe that the Biden administration, the EPA under the Biden administration, had the authority to grant the waivers that it did to these states.
I do not.
Okay. Do you believe that the Trump administration has the authority to grant waivers to polluters?
I do not believe that the Trump administration is granting waivers to
You don't?
polluters. I do not.
Are you familiar with this new announcement? I'll read you this article. This is just from 2 weeks ago. EPA offers industrial polluters a way to avoid rules on mercury, arsenic, and other toxic chemicals. Are you aware of that?
I believe that we're discussing the California.
No, I hear you.
today.
You just answered. You said that. I think your testimony a minute ago was that you're not aware that the administration is pursuing any potential waivers for polluters or for states, for that matter, to avoid compliance with the Clean Air Act. Right? Clearly, that's not. I guess you're not aware, but you're aware now, right? I've made you aware of that. Let me read you just a paragraph from this article. The EPA has set up an electronic mailbox to allow regulated companies to request a presidential exemption under the Clean Air Act to a host of Biden-era rules. Companies were asked to send an email by Monday seeking permission from President Donald Trump to bypass the new restrictions. This is a part of, a push to roll back dozens of environmental regulations. The Trump administration is offering coal-fired power plants and other industrial polluters a chance for exemptions for requirements to reduce emissions of toxic chemicals, such as mercury, arsenic, and benzene. You're familiar with this now?
With your reading, I think it is important that we return the discussion to what this CRA
I hear you,
achieved.
Mr. Joyce, I get it. You've testified at great length about this particular, I get why you're supporting the CRA. I understand that. Seems like you don't want to talk about this, what they're calling the polluters portal. And I think you could understand why I would be frustrated and the people that I represent in Colorado would be frustrated. Because on the one hand, it sounds like you're taking the position that the EPA, under a Democratic administration, has no authority to grant a state an exemption to be able to impose standards that are a bit higher to protect clean air and clean water. But under the Trump administration, it seems like, unless you want to disabuse me of this, you're completely fine with the Trump administration granting exemptions to polluters to avoid the requirements of the Clean Air Act with respect to these chemicals that are regulated. Do you understand why that would strike people as a bit confounding?
The only confounding part that I recognize is how the Biden administration turns away from the free market and wants to allow a Biden-era EPA to enforce a rule onto my constituents that doesn't allow them to choose
You've
and
said that
buy
a few
vehicle
times.
that they can afford.
I hear
to
you.
choose and buy a vehicle that can drive them to and from work.
I get it. I get why you oppose this rule. I understand why you oppose this rule. Do you support these exemptions? What I'm saying to you is I understand. You've made it abundantly clear. You oppose the exemptions that were granted under the Biden administration. Do you support these exemptions that the Trump administration is poised to grant in the coming weeks to polluters in your district?
And I support
Is that a yes?
I support the Trump administration, and I support that the president is aware that the Biden-era mandates that were occurring last minute as he went out the door negatively affect the American people.
Well, I would just venture to suggest to you that if you're going to take the position that the EPA does not have the statutory or constitutional authority to grant exemptions to states that wish to impose standards on clean air and clean water that are higher than the federal government, it's probably a safe bet not to take the position that you've taken, which is that you are permitted, the EPA that is, to grant exemptions to any number of polluters to deviate from those very same standards. That is a inconsistent position, and I get that you disagree with me on that, but I'll digress. It sounds like one of the other reasons that you oppose the Biden-era rule, or why you support this CRA, is cost, right? Is prices. I heard an exchange previously with one of my friends on the other side of the aisle.
The financial impact
On consumers.
on my constituents and constituents across the United States.
And this is around
significant.
car prices, right?
Specifically surrounding the EVs, the electric vehicles that consumers cannot afford and the consumers do not want.
And I assume you would agree with me, we don't want car prices going up, right? I mean, the last thing my constituents in Colorado want is the prices of their vehicles going up. And I assume the same is true of your constituents. Or is that not true? Or?
My consumers, my constituents, and those across the United States want to pay for the vehicle that they want to choose, not the vehicle that the government mandates.
Sure. I didn't think this would be a point of disagreement. You're saying your constituents don't agree with my constituents that they don't want car prices to go up?
I think if a constituent wants to buy a more expensive vehicle, that is their choice. The whole discussion here
I hear you about that.
I don't want the federal mandate for that.
Okay. Now Mendez got you. Mr. Tonko, how about I ask you this question? Do the people of your district want prices of cars, generally, used cars, new cars, to go up?
No, of course
No.
not. You know,
Okay. Sounds like that's not a controversial position. I think most Americans don't want the prices of their vehicles to go up. Is that right, Mr. Joyce? Or is that I can't get you to agree on that?
I think that they want to pay for the vehicle that they want to choose.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I think I understand why you don't want to answer that question directly. And it's because you know that car prices are going up, right? That just 2 days ago, for the first time in 3 years, used car prices went up year to year, increase. You're aware of that, right? There's an article I can read to you. I don't want to go through the whole. There's an article from a Pennsylvania newspaper that I could quote to you that I can represent to you, attests that car prices are going up.
You bring an interesting point into the conversation, and that is my concern as we decrease the number of internal combustion engines, which Americans want to buy. As we decrease those, we will see an increase in those costs if we force individuals into electric vehicles that they cannot afford.
So you don't think that the car prices going up, unlike every economist in our country has concluded, have nothing to do with the tariffs? That you think that is that's not a factor?
We saw used cars increase during COVID. We saw that increase in used vehicles.
Correct. 4 years ago, during COVID, I don't really understand that. I'm not asking you about car prices during the COVID pandemic. What I'm asking you is
the market drives what those costs are, and what my
and why do you
concern
think
is,
the market is
and
changing
why
right
the
now?
CRA is in place is that we are concerned that that is going to drive additional costs that America cannot
I see,
afford.
but you're not concerned at all about the tariffs.
I think that the tariffs are short-term pain for long-term gain.
Short-term pain. Let me just tell you, I'm not going to, I don't want to impugn your motives here. I can just tell you that my constituents in Colorado didn't sign up for the short-term pain that you're apparently comfortable with. They don't want car prices to go up. And the fact that you can't bring yourself to just even agree with me on that premise, the notion that generally speaking we should try to keep costs low, to me speaks volumes. No one here is prepared to defend President Trump's reckless tariff policies and yet simultaneously refuse to concede to the reality that these policies are wreaking economic havoc in communities in Colorado and in your communities, sir. And I understand that we have a policy disagreement about this CRA, but what I am telling you is that for the first time in 3 years, used car prices on average went up 2 days ago, and there's a reason for it. So the reason is Mr. Trump's policies, not a CRA that just went into effect. So with that, Madam Chair, again, I appreciate your indulgence and giving me the opportunity to say a few words here, and I thank both gentlemen for testifying, and I yield back.